So now I want to introduce our speakers. Josie Hardy, Bob Erickson, Larry Lee, 5 other Rotarians and spouses participated in a friendship exchange through Rotary with the Philippines. And one of the things that I discovered going to the international convention is how many of these opportunities there are to participate in Rotary in so many ways. And I think the friendship exchange sounds like probably just that, a really wonderful way to create friends all over the world. And so I'm anxious to hear about it. Thanks to the hard work of Josie in setting this up, they were able to, and we know it was a lot of work. They were able to experience the Philippines from a unique perspective that only a trip like this allows. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speakers today, who are no strangers to us, and now are actually quite famous celebrities in the Philippines as well. So they actually, I think they treat the Rotarian guests as celebrities over there. So so we have some dignitaries with us. So I'll let Josie, Bob, and Larry take over, but I think Josie's going to start, right?
Josie's going to start off.
Okay. And then will you run the slides for her?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Welcome, Josie.
Thank you. I would like to start as the summary of our trip, and it looks like this trip is truly the Rotary Friendship Exchange based on the policies and protocols of what Rotary Friendship Exchange is all about. That was talked about in Atlanta this past 2 weeks, and by talking with the different people who had gone to Friendship Exchange, the Philippine Friendship Exchange is truly what it is all about. Meaning you are hosted by the families, and there is a contract that they come back to your district and you also have to host them, and we did that. In your tables, there's a roster that you may want to look at. They were very impressed with this when we were there, to the point that I was asked to call Minneapolis, the template people, and print out 1,000 of this to give to the delegates at that district convention. I was asked 3 times, and I said, no, we're not going to do that, because they really were very impressed with this roster. And also the summarization of what Minneapolis is all about and where we're at. And I just said, no template, no 1,000 copies of these.
And Josie, we need to give credit to Don Stiles. We set that up 4 years ago for India, and we've been following the same format.
Wonderful, wonderful. In this exchange, as we mentioned, and everyone felt like we were really treated royally. We were at the high end of the group, and were invited to country clubs, to the district conferences. We did not pay hardly anything. For the district conference, I think it was $50 US, but that was free for us. They were so hospitable. We received gifts, personal gifts, and also the host families were so hospitable to all the Rotarians. And we were asked several times, a few times, to go on stage, and I'm just going to pass this along. This is our group, and I will pass that along. I'll keep this very brief, and we talked about a PowerPoint. I worked with Larry Zilax, because he was the past district governor, about the international 6 areas of focus. So we put that together very briefly. Number 1 is the maternal and child health. And of course, we put together our very own Abul and the project in India. I'll keep this brief. Number 2 is the disease prevention and treatment. It's the same thing. We worked on our very own ABOL, the project in India. And number 3 is the water sanitation treatment. We are all involved internationally for the water program. And the last one was when Mary Kurth went to Haiti for the water treatment program. Another focus is the education and literacy. That was presented as well to our very own Sandhya in India, as well as the Monticello, Minnesota district had put together a school or a library that is open in Cambodia. That was a project of Larry Z. And another one is the economic and community services. We had a hard time trying to put this together, and we were looking at Germany. That's why, we emailed Don, do you have any pictures? What about this, Germany? And either we did not get it on time or we did not have a video for it, so that was not presented. But we still talked about Germany as the focus. And number 6 area of focus is peace and conflict resolution. We talked about our youth exchange program that we are so involved with. And that was presented, and of course we all went on stage, after the presentation, and we were presented all the time. Thank you. Very quickly, our Rotarian, there were 10 of us, Eden Prairie, Burnsville, Edina, but mostly Bloomington Noon is the biggest representative. And we all contributed on our own, we discussed this, I think, $100 for something that we could bring, like the clothing for the kids and health kit that we did, toys that I brought, but it was not enough because there were just too many children. So we had to go and get some more. Miss Lolita is the chair that I had been working with since February 2016, and it just kind of ended up, just about last week, ended up. But we're all friends, as you know. And I am very pleased to announce that the Manila projects that 5950 completed was the General Hospital for the Children's Ward, where we brought toys and blankets, and we decided among 5950 that we are going to put together either by grant about putting together a garden that was spacious, that was right there where the parents stay with the children who has cancer, so that at least they have a place for respite or to have lunch or to just get away from the children, because they stay there 24 hours a day sleeping on the floor. So that is being put together, and I have a brief summary of that, but it's not put together yet in terms of what garden they're going to put together. And another one that we did was the Mindoro Mangyan children. We had to go through bus, and did we do a boat also? Yes. Bus and boat. Yeah, we did. We did all that. And we brought health kits from each and every one of us. We had toothpaste, washcloths, and something that they could use for health kits. That was not enough, so Lolita and I, we had to go and buy some more, including little blankets. Even it was so hot, they need blankets. They get cold. When it's 70 degrees, they get cold. And then also in the Mindoro Hospital, We were able to, through our $100 gift, from each of us, 2 electric ceiling fans for the hospital, and also 2 turbo mop. And I said, what is that? Well, it's the regular to clean the floors. And we bought that. It was presented to them. And also in Mindoro, each 10 of us donated 10,000 pesos for a water collector, water pump that goes up on top of the building, so that there will always be water for the children to use, as well as catch the rain water. And it's almost done. And that was 10,000 from each of us. We just did that. And let me see. That's about it. We had just the greatest time. We did. And then when the Philippine Rotarians came, they enjoyed their time. They enjoyed their time up north, and went to Atlanta. And most of them are back home in the Philippines now, but there's some people that are still traveling or staying with family in California. So on with our program, Larry. Thank you. Oh, one moment, please. Okay, this is the Manila Club. It's the oldest Rotary Club in Asia. And this is what I was saying to Jim Lucas. They only have male members, and they're very, very high-end.
You can smell the money when
You can smell money when you go there. Yeah, yeah. And it's, Oh, and by the way, just to tell you about the hospitality and what Filipinos give, Larry Ziliak, who was a past district governor, he had a birthday. He had birthday cakes, and people were singing happy birthday, and the band was singing happy birthday about 4 different occasions. Yes. Oh, and by the way, I have to say something about our tags. We're given tags, and they're into titles. And I had to figure out, including sizes for all the people, for them to get this presented, And then this one, it says BOD, B-O-D, Josie. What does that mean? Board of Director. So now, Bob is...
I'm a BOD too.
He's also a BOD, but yeah. PPF, BOD. It means like past, present, and future Board of Director is Bob. Okay, thank you.
Good job.
So Jamie told me he's a fan of improv. The rest of this presentation is improv as you go, so be ready for it.
Audience participation?
I'm going, yes, audience participation too. You give the subject and we'll do a talk about it. I'm asking our members to jump in with my presentation, and I'm going to ask you to do a couple, but I'm thinking that you'll let me run with as much as I can. These are our 10 members. The title slide, this is Larry Ziliak, and he is a past district governor. When you get to the hierarchy in the Philippines, which is very important among Rotarians, DG is the highest, that's a current district governor. PDG, like Diane, is second best after the DG. Current president is next. Past president, like I was, is next after that. BOD is next, and then come the regular members. But all of your name tags, you look at my name tag, it says PP on it, because I'm a past president, and they all defer to you appropriately based on that. What is a Rotary Friendship Exchange? The purpose is to explore new cultures and discover diverse perspectives on things. I would say that happened in spades in the Philippines because they have a very different socioeconomic situation and a geopolitical situation, and that influenced very much of what we learned. They're self-funded, and therefore members and their families, as you see, we had family members go along with us. And frankly, being part of an exchange is a wonderful way for both your hosts and the country that's traveling to learn about service partnerships, and I will talk a little bit about that. It's important to understand the geography, and I realized when I got there that I understood very little about the geography of the Philippines. So on a larger scale, this is the Philippines right here. You see they're very tight to Indonesia and to Malaysia on the south, which is a problem because this area is where the Muslim insurgency is, and it's a very easy ferry ride across for people who are in Indonesia and Malaysia to reach Mindanao Island. And it's one of the reasons why the insurgency is there. It gives you a sense of their neighbors are Vietnam, Hong Kong, Taiwan. There was another exchange group there at the same time from Taiwan, the same time as we were. And you can see Taiwan is a pretty close neighbor. The flight from Hong Kong to Manila was about 2 hours. So it gives you the sense of how close they are.
And the Taiwanese group invited us to come in 2 years.
For an exchange.
Yeah, for exchange.
This is a closer up map of the islands with the 31 largest islands named. I don't know how many islands there are if you start counting, 7,000? 7,000 islands. So we talk about 10,000 lakes. They talk about 7,000 islands. This is Luzon, this big orange area. That's where we were located. Manila is on this bay. I will talk more about the strategic importance of that bay when I talk about Bataan and Corregidor. Mindoro is another island we went to. You will see a couple of the projects we got involved in Mindoro, and you see that that was a ferry right away. And then Palawan is this island. We also went there, flew there, about an hour flight, and we'll show you some pictures of that. Mindanao is the one that's in the news. That's where they're experiencing the Muslim insurgency. And it's not like it's just recent. It's been going on for years and years. Basically, most sane people warned us that you would never want to go to Mindanao as a light-skinned foreigner. It's just not a safe thing to do. Any geography questions?
North to south, how many miles?
Well, if this was an hour on a plane, I'd say about 1,000 miles. It looks like about 2 hours north to south. Is that roughly right?
So Larry, when we have a map, we also should point out, there's a lot of controversy obviously with China. And they call, China calls it the South China Sea, but the Philippines call it the
West Philippine Sea. So this is the area that Bob's talking about right here.
And you're going to hear a lot more about that in the future because that's where China's trying to increase its influence.
But it was already decided by the Hague in Netherlands that this island belongs to the Philippines,
Right.
but nobody wants to respect that.
We went to a presentation at the Manila Club where a former national security advisor talked about China's really explicit policy to extend their influence to a line that runs outside of the Philippines and these islands. And you probably have heard about the Spratlys. They are a small group of islands. It's the one that the US Navy sailed by in the last week and got the objections from China for sailing past the Spratlys. The Philippines, the World Court decided the Spratlys are the Philippines' property, not Chinese. But China has built up started as a fishing camp and now it's a military base on one of the Spratlys. So there's a dispute about islands in this area, and then this is a very rich fishing area, fairly shallow, like the Grand Banks off of the US's east coast, also in dispute with China. They had a research vessel spend 3 months in there, which caused quite a stir. So you will be hearing geopolitically about that for a long time, and I do not envy the Philippines' position. So we had host clubs when we went. This is the Carmona Rotaract Club, and they hosted Betsy and me. We had to be extemporaneous again. We didn't realize we were going to come into a meeting and give a presentation, but I thought we did a rather great job with it. We had a host team, which is members of the Rotary clubs in the Philippines who showed up virtually everywhere and every time. Bernie, a few of you might have had a chance to meet him. I think many of you had a chance to meet Lolit Anahao. Lolit is their Josie. Between Josie and Lolit, they coordinated everything on the exchanges, and they basically acted as the mothers for the two groups to make sure we got where we were supposed to go at approximately the right time. What we're doing in this picture is holding up bags of Philippine coffee. We were given, this was just before we were leaving, we were given Philippine coffee as a gift. And then finally we had host families. About half of the time we stayed in homes, and the host families were responsible for hosting us and providing the homes. Again, this is a Rotarian who visited here, and you might remember meeting her when she came to our meeting when she was visiting the Twin Cities. This guy was supposed to come, and in the end he couldn't, which is a shame because he was a great personality. One of the first things we did when we got in town is said, hop in the van, we're going to a dinner. And we walk into the dinner, and there's a boxing ring set up in the corner, which is not so usual when you go into a hotel ballroom. And what it was the Flash Elorde Boxing Awards. Every 40 years or so, the Philippines produces a really good boxer. So Pancho Villa was the first one. Flash Elorde was the second one. Manny Pacquiao is the third one. And we came across a guy who's trying to develop the fourth one and not have it be 40 years until there's another boxing sensation from out of the Philippines. It is a very major sport there. And as you can imagine, there are many poor people in the Philippines. And if you make it as a boxer, it is a way to make it beyond your wildest hopes and dreams. But like in any professional sport, for every one who does, there are thousands who don't make it. Intermuros is the walled city, the old Spanish city in Manila. And that was one of the first things we did, was go on tours of the old Spanish city. This is a horse cart that is typical of the area, and those poor horses, we nearly lifted them off the ground by the number of people we put in the back.
Larry stepped on the back. He almost lifted the horse.
The history of the Philippines is very complicated. When you're there, you'll find it takes a while to learn it. But Jose Rizal is part of that. If you had an independence history that wasn't successful, that's basically what this is. Mr. Rizal was an agitator for independence from Spain, and he got shot for his efforts. But he is an important figure and martyr, and so this memorial, you can see right there it says Rizal, is an important independence memorial, although he didn't accomplish independence for the Philippines, and we laid a wreath at the Rizal Memorial. This illustration shows the firing squad about to execute him. And then Corregidor and Bataan. I had some very general ideas about what that was about in the back of my head, but nothing very specific. And if you will bear with me for just a moment, I'll try to give some of that information to you. In this map, you see Manilla Bay there and where Manila was, described in the size Manila was at the start of World War II, so relatively small. And then this Manilla Bay was very strategically important, especially when countries expressed their military power through naval rather than in the air. Corregidor is this island. You can see that it's really important for protecting Manilla Bay, and that's why it was fortified before the start of World War II. And then this is the Bataan Peninsula over here, and I'm sure many of you have heard about the Bataan Death March. So April 1942, you see the headlines from the Philippines Tribune, Bataan completely occupied by Japanese. And if you cast your mind back, December 1941 was Pearl Harbor, so you can see 5 months later that the Philippines was overrun by the Japanese too. And MacArthur was sort of a combination consultant and US general in charge of the US military in the Philippines. And Corregidor and Bataan were sort of his headquarters and stronghold, where he had to retreat, not with very many men. He retreated with his command staff to Australia. So we went on tours of these, and I had no idea where Bataan was compared to Corregidor and exactly why Corregidor was important. But these are the reasons. Corregidor was heavily fortified. You see the tunnel there that ran basically under a mountain on Corregidor that was used for the key command staff. And then you see the type of guns designed for naval encounters that they had on Corregidor. Again, World War II was fought mostly from the air. And so the armies and navies are always fighting the last war you had, not what the next one is going to be.
To give you an idea of the size of that tunnel housed a hospital holding 4,000 people. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it was huge. It was very, very large. And they had all kinds of other installations in it.
You can see roughly how long it is in that picture, and then there are all of these side tunnels that come off of it like branches off of a tree. This is what the two entries to the Malinta Tunnel looks like. There were, of course, barracks and other things on the island. After the U.S. retook it, that's about what was left of the barracks on the island. And then there's the MacArthur statue, and it was very disillusioning to me that MacArthur said, "I shall return," when he was in Australia, not when he was leaving here.
Well, MacArthur is very highly regarded in the Philippines.
We had an interview on Manila Radio. This was one of our host team members that was with us all the time. He was also the interviewer on the radio. We went to the University of St. Thomas, which is mostly well known for being the place where Josie got her degree. And we also had a chance to see the medical facility there, and probably the first and last time I will be in a lab where the students are working on cadavers.
They all had their own cadaver. One student had their own body right in front of them to dissect.
We went to Villa Escudero when I was experiencing upset stomach from eating grilled mussels, and everybody else had a great time there. It's sort of a museum of folklore. And Herma Farm and Ranch is owned by this guy, who made his money off of shipping and shipbuilding, and spends it on raising horses.
Well, we have to interpret this a little bit. I'll get up because we've got, Larry's got another slide coming up. But there's actually a picture here that Larry has censored.
I love it.
This farm, for those of you that were reading the blog, this man is a very wealthy shipping magnate, and there's about 100 racehorses on this farm, as well as accommodations for very deluxe accommodations for probably 30, 40 people, a swimming pool, entertainment area, and everything else. Hermes had arranged for us to view 2 mares being bred. And I sent Larry a picture of that, but he decided to self-censor that particular one. But
I decided that those of you who have seen it know what it looks like, and those of you who haven't probably don't care to.
But since we're talking about it, is the next slide the one of the circumcision clinic?
No, it is not. But I will go there and then come back.
Go right to the fish market.
Well, it's a ways off. I'll let you come back for that one.
Okay, well, I'll just stay up there.
Betsy, do you want to say something about food?
Oh yeah, 2 minutes food, okay.
50% of what we did in the Philippines was food.
6 times a day, we ate.
We talked about World War II. My father was in the Philippines during World War II, so all of my life I had heard about the Philippines and the kindness of the people, how special they were. So it was kind of like a heart trip for me. And food, of course, is one way that they express their love and hospitality for you. I mean, more food than you could ever eat. So the second slide, going to the fish market was quite an experience. You have to deal with these squiggly things, and you pick out what you want, and then they cook it up in 15 minutes. That was really a fun experience.
Not just one place. You can choose which restaurant you want to cook up what you just chose at the fish market.
Oh, I didn't remember that. I'm going to tell you about the balloons. Okay, he wants to tell. Every country has its own interesting traditions. And of course, if you're going to eat, you go to a potluck. Everybody invites you to the potluck. At this potluck, they kept telling us we've got a special surprise at the end of this meal. And there was always a snicker and kind of smile. And I thought, okay, fine, we'll wait to the end of the meal. Finally get to the end of the meal, and they said, well, so here they are, and you see the hard-boiled eggs. I mean, that's not so particularly strange.
It's called a 1,000-year-old egg.
What we didn't know is that this particular egg, I'm told, is used in the Fear Factor. It freaks people out because it's not a hard-boiled egg. It's there's a little embryo you see up in the upper right. It's like a little chicken with
Actually, a little duck.
a little duck feathers and all this stuff. And so they double dared us to eat this thing, and Larry wouldn't touch it, and I tried. So right there, I'm making the attempt to eat the balut, and I thought, what would this be comparable? Comparable would be you invite a Filipino here to a potluck, and everybody snickers and says at the end of the meal we're going to give you a surprise. Are you ludicrous? Maybe.
Yeah.
Now, the fun part was the rest of our trip, all the Filipinos would say, you ate balloons? You ate balloons? So here it'd be like, you ate lutefisk?
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm cognizant we've only got 10 minutes left. We went to the District 3810 conference, district conference, and the pictures at the bottom here look like the discons you're used to, but here's the stuff that's not like the district conferences we're used to. Very formal reenactments of musical plays done as a contest among different districts within the district. Very formal governor's ball at the end, a balloon drop. This is way far removed from the district conferences that we're used to going to. Then we went to Mindoro. This is the ferry that got us to Mindoro, variously a 2 or a 4 hour ride depending on which ferry you took. And
One was air conditioned, the other one wasn't.
You heard Josie talking about the Munyan Village project. They are, the best I could describe it, is a sort of Aboriginal people of the Philippines. And they have stayed relatively separate from the general population. And I believe they said that there are about 100,000 Manyan on the island of Mindoro. This is what a village looked like, the village we went to. Some pictures to show you the kids. We were kind of surprised we were getting this really good police protection everywhere we went on Mindoro. But after the fact, we learned that they had some threats. They didn't know exactly where on Luzon and Mindoro about kidnapping of visitors. And so we had this wonderful police protection everywhere we went.
Not Mindoro.
No, but there was a threat in Manila, though, while we were there, we learned. And so they weren't exactly sure. Notice, basketball is very important everywhere. Boards, a board back put on a tree. Those are two trees at either end of the court, but still basketball. Josie talked about these hygiene kits. We took over toothpaste, toothbrushes, washcloths, and made these hygiene kits for the kids and handed them out. Our dentist donated the Crayola toothbrushes and some toothpaste that were in those kits. And we learned that the school will use them to teach kids how to brush their teeth. The toothbrushes and toothpaste will be housed at the school, and in the morning, first thing they arrive, they go out to the sink in front of the school and learn how to brush their teeth. Palawan, the other island we went to, it is a more tourist-oriented island. Here are some pictures of food again. We got some needed downtime on Palawan to relax a little bit. These are schoolgirls. They were just graduating when we were there. This is a typical outrigger boat. A couple of times we rode on them. Once for a trip to Honda Bay and also to the Underground River National Park. So you get to the park, you go on these small outriggers like in the upper right-hand corner, and the Underground River is basically a river in a long cave. And the right-hand side gives you a sense of what it's like in that cave, except it's really darker than that picture. Here are some of the projects we visited. The Philippine General Hospital, Human Milk Bank at the Chinese General Hospital, adolescent circumcisions, which Bob is just anxious to tell you about. Basically a reading program like we operate for kids at a school. The water collection tank Josie talked about, and ceiling fans for the Mindoro Municipal Hospital. I have some pictures to give you a sense of the place. So this is the Philippine General Hospital. This is us with all of our stuff before we went in to visit the kids. And we had toys to give to the kids in the hospital. We did it with a professional group of dentists, and this is a picture of the dentists who went with us into the hospital. This is a picture of Betsy with a dad with his kid, and another kid there. One of the things we observed is the parents basically provided the nursing for the kids there. And once the kids were in, the parents hardly ever left. They would sleep underneath the beds on a cardboard underneath the bed. The Human Milk Bank at the Chinese General Hospital. They had just started this up about a year ago. They're very data oriented here. That hospital has a, what's the certification, Bob? Yeah, they have an ISO certification, so very sophisticated. And then Bob is going to talk about the Thule circumcision.
This is going to be very fast. Actually, Larry found this ad, which is just talking about the cost of circumcision. That's about $30 or $40 US, which for a family making $5,000 a year is simply too much. So the Rotary clubs do free circumcision, and Nancy and I were there. And for those of you that were reading my blog, and the reason I wanted to talk about this when we had the the horse farm, is Nancy and I had in one day, we had the uncovering, the circumcisions, and then the coverings, which was the breeding of the mares. So I see we're short on time, so we'll let it go at that.
It is very culturally important for a young boy, and we're talking about adolescents here, not infants like in the US, for a young boy to be circumcised. And to the point that the clubs decided providing free circumcisions was really important for families that could not afford to circumcise their sons. This is at the Mindoro Municipal Hospital where we donated the fans to give you a sense of the conditions at the hospital.
That's cardboard, not a metal frame.
Yep.
A Place to Learn was a project of the club that hosted us. And basically it is one of these structures. It's a traditional structure. They put it in the courtyard of the school, and the club provides the educational materials that the kids come after the school and use and take home. And then the last thing we did before we left was sign an agreement to host the 3810 delegation here. And you know that we've done that because you got to meet them when they visited our club. So, there you go.